Hello, everyone. My name is Paulette Southerly, and I work for the Northern West Virginia Center for Independent Living. I'm also an advisor to the People First of Monongalia and Preston County Group. Today, I'd like to talk about writing letters to your legislators. I know a lot of you are already really good at this, but I hope I'll be able to provide some information you don't already know. What are we going to learn today? I'm going to keep this short and sweet. We have two main questions. Why should I write letters to politicians? And what are the steps for writing a good letter? First up, why does writing letters matter? That one is easy, to make sure that your voice is heard. As self-advocates, you have special stories and experiences that politicians need to know about. Some additional reasons to write to your elected officials include to explain to an official how a particular issue affects you or your group, to express support or opposition to a proposed law, policy, or course of action, to demonstrate to an official that his constituents are aware of an issue and have a real interest in the outcome, and to build your reputation as a thoughtful person in the eyes of the officials, and thus make your criticism or support more influential. It also puts you in a position to be the person to be consulted when the official needs information about an issue. Basically, you want to make yourself the go-to expert for disability-related issues for your legislator. So now that we know why it is important to write to your politicians, we need to know, how do you do it in a way to make sure that your voice is clear? I've put together some steps for writing a clear letter to your representative. There are steps you can take to make sure your letters are fantastic every time. Step 1 is research. You want to know what you're going to write about, if there are already any bills being proposed about that issue, and to whom you're going to be writing. Research is always my first step. Step 2, do you have a personal story about the issue? Have you experienced barriers or problems because of the topic? If not you personally, what about your friends or family? You'll want to write that story out before you get started with your letter. Step 3 is time to write the letter. I've included a template in this presentation that I have found to be helpful when I write letters to legislators or when I help other individuals write letters to legislators. And then step 4 is following up with your legislator. Research is creating new knowledge, according to Neil Armstrong. It's about 75% of the work that I do. If you're comfortable with research, you're going to be great at letter writing. And if you're not comfortable yet, I do have some tips for how to be a good researcher. Step 1, you're going to want to make a schedule and keep to it. You will need time to get an overview of what material and information is out there, maybe find out what's in your library or online, and select the most important information, read it, take notes, and then start putting it together. Number 2 is start, don't end with Wikipedia. The goal here is to get a good overview of the subject you're writing about. And Wikipedia is better for that than most printed resources because it can take you to other pages on the internet. By the time you get ready to write, you should have much better resources at your command than Wikipedia. So try to avoid putting Wikipedia in your letter. You can search for keywords related to your topic. You can browse the links at the end of the page and follow their suggested resources, or you can just use it to take notes, especially of any good resources they recommend. And step 3 is to ask for help. So an often overlooked resource is your friendly neighborhood librarian. They know the material in their library forward and backwards. They love helping people and seeing it used, and they have committed their lives to making information more available to everyone in the community. Most librarians will be happy to help you find relevant material for your letter. You can also discuss this with friends, families, and other advocates. After you have some information about the topic that you want to write to your legislator about, the next step is to see if there are any bills related to your topic already present in the legislator. The best place to do this is West Virginia Legislature.gov. You can see in the top right corner here, there's a little search bar that says Enhanced by Google. You can type keywords in there like disability or waiver to see if there are bills related to those topics. If you know a bill number, that's even better. You can use the bill quick search bar right here. A great website for finding your legislators is openstates.org. You'll see here you can enter your address, and once you enter your address, it will bring up a page that looks like this, which shows your state and federal legislators. The really cool part is that if you click on their names, you can find out even more detailed information about them. Here I've clicked on Evan Hansen's name. You can see his email address, his mailing addresses for both his district office in Morgantown and the Capitol office in Charleston. And you can also see which bills Mr. Hansen has sponsored, as well as how he's voted on previous bills. This is great to know if you're writing to thank someone for their support, or if you want to explain to them why you wish they had voted in a different way. So now you've done your research and you're ready to tell your legislator all about an issue that is important to you or the community. Now it's time to prepare your personal story. Before anything else, preparation is the key to success, says Alexander Graham Bell. So why is it important to tell your story to legislators? When you share your story with legislators honestly, it allows them to understand the depth and reality of disability. Not only that, but it helps them understand how their decisions affect people's lives directly. Real-life stories can create a powerful response because it touches our hearts. The same thing happens when you share your story. When you share your story with your representatives, it helps them remember that when a decision about disability policy is being made, it is affecting real lives. Your story can make relationships with elected officials so that when decisions about disability policy cross their desks, they think of you. Again, you want to be the go-to person. Keep these things in mind when contacting your legislator. Number 1, your story cannot be wrong. It is your own personal experience. Number 2, your experience has value and meaning. Number 3, you don't have to have all the answers, just a clear ask. So you're asking for your support, or you're asking them for additional funding. So while your lived experience is an invaluable asset to the cause, how you tell your story can affect the impact you make. I've taken this from NAMI's website. They have some advocacy story tips. First, keep it brief. Focus on the important events that would move the legislators and leave a memorable mark on them. Motivate with hope and ideas. Frame your story in a positive way. Draw a realistic picture of what can be done to help those who have disabilities. If you haven't received the help that you needed, give them suggestions on what they could do in the future to help. And finally, make an ask. Don't be shy. Legislators expect requests from their constituents. Let them know what would help others, then put them on the hook by asking for their support. If they say yes, you have a supporter. If they say no, you know you'll need to follow up with them and build that support. So here's the template that I use that I have found to be very helpful. You'll see that each step we've taken so far is a part of this letter. So for example, right here, we researched our legislators. We fill that information in the heading up there. Right here, where it says state the topic or include the bill number, author, and subject, we already have that information if it's available because we checked on West Virginia legislature.gov. We have our representative, assembly member, or senator's last name, so we can fill that information in. And then we can write a little bit of information about ourselves. So I would say my name is Paulette Southerly, and I'm an advisor for People First who resides in your district. Then we state why we support or oppose the bill or other issue here. Choose up to 3 of the strongest points from your research from earlier that support your position and state them clearly. Then we move on to a personal story. Tell your representative why the issue was important to you and how it affects you, your family member, and your community. Again, we've already written this out. And then tell your representative how you want her or him to vote on the issue and ask for a response. Be sure to include your name and address on both your letter and envelope. Then you sign your name, print your name, and then put your address so they can get in contact with you if they want to. Now that you've researched the issue and you've prepared your personal story and you've gotten your template, you're ready to get writing. So let's go through what the writing looks like. The topic I've chosen is organ transplant discrimination against people with disabilities. And before we get started on this, I just want to say that this bill has already passed. So this is an example only. I know that a lot of you guys are already familiar with this topic, so I thought it would make it a little bit easier to fit it all into the template because you guys have already done a lot of research and advocacy for this topic. And because of your advocacy, this bill was successful. So our topic in this case is organ transplant discrimination. During our research, let's say we found some great information on the National Council on Disability, ncd.gov. And we wrote down this information. The information is if a person has a disability that is unrelated to the reason a person needs an organ transplant, the disability will generally have little or no impact on the likelihood of the transplant being successful. If a person with a disability receives adequate support, the person's disability should also have very limited impact on the ability to adhere to a post-transplant care regimen. And finally, the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act prohibit organ transplant centers from discriminating on the basis of disability. So after our research, these are the 3 points that we thought were the most important. Then we went to West Virginia legislature.gov and we found out that there was already Senate Bill 647. So we can use that in our letter as well to reference. We went to openstates.org and we found all of our representatives here. We know who we need to write to try to get support. So our final letter might look a little something like this. September 10th, 2022. The Honorable Barbara Evans Fleischauer, Room 229E, Building 1, State Capitol Complex, Charleston, West Virginia, 25305, using the information that we got from our research. We're discussing Senate Bill 647, Organ Transplant Discrimination Against People with Disabilities. Dear Assembly Member Fleischauer, remember we go on to tell a little bit about ourselves. My name is Paulette Southerly, and I am an advocate with People First who resides in your district. Then we move on to say if we support or oppose the bill. In this case, I support Bill 647 to prevent discrimination against people with disabilities for organ transplants. According to research from the National Council on Disability, and then I go on to cite those 3 points that we discussed earlier. I go on to say, as a person with a disability, I am scared of being injured or needing a transplant because of the current discrimination against us when it comes to organ donation. Just because I have a mental illness does not mean that I should not be considered for a transplant if I need one in the future, because my need for a donation will probably not have anything to do with my disability. I also worry for family members with disabilities. They deserve to live full, healthy lives, and their lives are worth just as much as someone without a disability. So that would be my short and sweet personal story. I follow up by saying, I think you should vote in favor of Senate Bill 647 prohibiting discrimination in the organ donation process. If you would like to contact me for additional information or with questions, you can contact me at my email address or my phone number. Then you want to thank them for their time. Thank you so much for your time. Sincerely, Paulette M. Southerly, 601 East Brockway Avenue, Morgantown, West Virginia, 26501. So we've taken all of the different parts from our preparation and our research, and we've put it together in one letter. Finally, we want to review it. As Dave Barry says, proofread carefully to see if you any words out. So you'll want to take your letter before you send it off. You're going to want to double check it. Make sure that you haven't left any words out. Maybe have friends or family members or other advocates take a look at it to make sure that it's clear. And then you'll send it off in the mail to your legislator. Okay, so that was a really quick overview of letter writing to your legislators. Are there any questions or comments or concerns?